But what happens in the case of microclusters, first of all, the material science text focuses on the really weird, peculiar properties of microclusters, okay? You have individual atoms that have now gathered together into this nice sacred geometry. And instead of the electrons, which are not even really electrons, it's a wave.
Well, they're not. It's not matter, right? It's a wave function.
It's a wave function. Instead of the electrons orbiting the center of each nucleus in the cluster, it actually orbits the center of the cluster. And they don't have any way to explain that because it totally defeats the particle model of physics.
Right.
You can't have particles doing that, and that's what they do. So what we do know is that these microclusters have very unusual physical properties. They're very highly conductive. They're very highly insulative, depending on how you use them. And we know that this is the core of what makes food nutritious. The more microclusters are in your diet, the more nutrition you get. But more importantly, when you ingest these microclusters, you're also ingesting vitality, which feeds the energy body. So most people's diet is so devoid of microclusters. They're not getting in the water, they're not getting in the food.
Yep.
Because if you're growing things on nitrogen, potassium, sodium, the NPK, like in Miracle Grow, 15, 30, 15.
Yep.
Yeah, you can give plants just those three things and they'll grow okay, but you're losing all the trace minerals and all the other stuff.
So all those trace minerals, the ormus elements, form like microclusters, right?
They form sacred geometry on a molecular level. And that sacred geometry actually feeds your energy body, which you don't even normally know you have. But you can tell when somebody has a really weak energy body because their skin goes bad and they crunch in, they lean forward.
Yep.
And
they lose their symmetry, they lose their levity, essentially.
Right.
So the Egyptians were onto this whole thing about feeding the light body.
Right.
Now, we had a talk yesterday about that the light body actually exists. It's
absolutely.
Right, and then we've got to feed it, and we feed it through microclustering. Now, the way I've approached that is always wild foods, especially really high-powered wild foods. Like yesterday, we had some of the saguaro cactus fruit.
I remember that. It was
wow.
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, you were like, this has microclusters in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could just feel it. And that kind of a thing. Is there any other ideas that come in from this research that might be of benefit to our viewers out there who are interested in diet so much, and water and fresh air?
Well, here's another thing that's really important, and that is that you can change the structure of your own food by intent. Remember that this is an intent-based energy. And so that's why it's so important to bless your food, because you can take the existing stuff that you're already using and make it much more potent by making it yours, by putting your energy into it. I would say that there are another one of the wonderful gifts is that nature has given us everything we need to be healthy. There's a natural pharmacopoeia, and that pharmacopoeia is an encyclopedia of knowledge. And so I would recommend, if anybody watching this video doesn't already know about David's work, you showed an incredible knowledge of natural supplements and things that would work for the body. And I would wager that a lot of those supplements have very unique microclustered elements in them.
I would bet
feeding
you're right.
the energy body.
Yeah, like fulvic acid definitely is one of those. Because its nature is, we were talking about snowflakes and the layering of snowflakes to form a snowbank, for example. Well, that's what fulvic acid really is. It's just carbon formations on top of each other that are residues of life forms that are essentially they're interspersed with bacteria when they're first laid down as sediment, and what's excreted into that fulvic acid sediment is actually probably microclusters of certain types of atoms, and probably high spin atoms like ormus elements. So we're now finding that actually this sacred geometry, this is a big thing. We'll close on this because this was a fascinating subject we got into, was about sacred geometry and these platonic solids. As they fold outward and become bigger, as they grow, this generates spin, but then they become more complex platonic solids.
Right.
So maybe we can talk about that, about pole shifts, because this, I mean, we've known that the Earth is growing. We've known that there's something going on with these platonic solids, but I think you put a piece in there that I had never heard before, which is, okay, we're going to be upgrading to the next higher octave platonic solid.
That's true. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, NOAA, had a paper written in 1976 by Dr. Athelstan Spilhaus, S-P-I-L-H-A-U-S. I have not been able to actually find the original paper, but it was referenced by Joseph Jockmans in an article called Earth as a Crystal Planet. Okay, and I found that book in another book by David Hatcher Childress called Anti-Gravity in the World Grid.
Oh, yeah. David Hatcher Childress is right up over here near Sedona, actually.
Okay. So basically, Spilhaus looked at the original layout of the continents in what they call It became Gondwana land. It was originally called Pangaea.
Yeah.
And he found that when you look at the way Pangaea breaks up, that it breaks up along equidistant lines. And he pulled to connect the dots of those equidistant lines and says, oh my God, it's a tetrahedron.
Whoa. Which
is a four-sided pyramid that has a triangle on the base rather than a square like in Egypt, but it's a little pyramid. Then he looks at, as Gondwana land continues unfolding, and he discovers, my gosh, the next round is a cube octahedron, which is basically a combination of an octahedron, which is two Egyptian pyramids base to base, and a cube. So then he also found out that our current phase of development is a icosahedron, which is, again, this five-sided pentagon thing, where there's 12 faces on the pentagon.
So it's icosahedron.
Right. It's so both of them together.
You can Google that one, and actually Wikipedia it, and you can see what that structure looks like.
There's books on my website, divinecosmos.com, where I've written about this called Convergence. All 3 volumes have the geometry in them. Anyway, what we now know is that, this is what I discovered basically, that each phase of the Earth's expansion is a platonic solid, and that's what determines the magnetic field and the energy fields going through the Earth. Yeah. And the pole, right, the rotational axis. When you shift from one platonic to another, it needs to make an angular tilt to preserve its axis.
Right.
So in other words, when the Earth shifts to a higher geometric frequency, which is just vibration, there does need to be a little bit of a tug on the poles.
Do you think that could happen in 2012, or do you think we're millions of years away from the next change in the poles?
It could, but again, the people who are all doom and gloom and thinking this is a big cataclysm have totally lost the point of this. Because you look through the fossil record and you see that when the solar system charges up like this, when you're getting interplanetary climate change, you're getting DNA activation. We know that humanity is now, it's in a supercharged period of evolutionary change. In the last 5,000 years, evolution is moving 100 times faster than before.
Wow.
That's proven by John Hawkes, a University of Wisconsin anthropologist. So we know that we're in a time where the species of humanity is evolving. And if you can vibe into the idea that the galaxy is an intelligent super being that created all human life on any planet that it exists, it's quite crass to think that the galaxy would just tell us in advance, oh, you're all going to die in 2012.
Yeah.
That's not
ridiculous.
The point. The point is prepare yourself, because something is happening, something is shifting, something is changing. And what's changing is each person on an individual level choosing whether they're going to go into love or whether they're going to go into fear. And one of the things I really like about your message, David, is how much you focus on the love and you dispel the fear. And you're also helping people tune up their diet so that they're chemically able to be in love rather than in fear.
Yeah, I kind of say it's stacking the odds in your favor.
Yeah.
Because diet is a tool that helps you stack the odds in your favor, so it's easier to hold a higher vibration energy, it's easier to hold that love energy, and it's easier to keep the fear off of you.
Right.
So, that's kind of the core of the whole dietary message, which is ultimately what heals you, I think. That's my experience. Anyway, we've gone well over your time. We got to get into a closing ceremony. This is David Wilcock, divinecosmos.com.
You got it.
divinecosmos.com. Check it out. He had the biggest video on Google, December 1st, 2008, 2012 Enigma. Also watch that and many of his other very informative videos. This is David Avocado Wolfe signing off. Have the best day ever.
Thank you.